This video is going to be about parallel compression. I'm going to explain it in as quick and easy, as simple way as I could do it, but this is not an easy, simple concept. So you got to realize that if you don't quite get it, just watch it again, hit stop, hit pause, zoom in, look at the buses' names, just come up with a way to figure out what's going on. But also know this is not by any means necessary to get a good mix. Some people don't use parallel compression at all, and they love it better. So it's not like this makes sense for everyone. This is just the way I work, and the way I work is a combination of how Michael Brauer works and how Andrew Sheps works. It's kind of a similar, there's a lot of similarities I take from them in their styles, and I kind of do what works for me. And that's what I insist you guys all do. What they are exactly doing is not as important as why they're doing what they're doing. So the biggest concept here, when you think Brauerize, you should think it makes more sense to use compressors in a way that allows the compression to not constantly need to be changed. That's the point. In other words, if you were to use one stereo compressor and send everything there, well, you may have it great when the bass and drums are the only thing in the song, but what happens now when the vocals come in? Now what happens when they come in stronger? What, are you going to keep adjusting the levels on everything so it doesn't duck too much, so it maintains whatever vibe you had created from the compressor? Because compressors give us not only a little bit of level control, it gives us vibe. It gives us so much more than just the level control. So that's the point, and that's how he's using it. He has A, B, C, D, and this is the way he breaks it out. Ready? I'm going to show you in a session so you can kind of see really what I'm talking about. Here we go. This is how he remembered what it was in the beginning. A means pretty much all the rest. Now, when we go through the other things, you'll realize whatever's not in there goes to the all the rest section, all right? But A is where he started. In other words, his first way he learned how to mix was send everything to A. There was only A. That's all he had. That was how he started. He came up with this idea later. That's the other thing you should realize, is this was a progression over time. He did not start with this is the best way to do it. He invented this and kept honing it, which you should do also. And that's why it doesn't matter exactly what he's doing, because you may come up with a better way that you like better for your style and how you work. So here we go. A means all the rest, but what's the rest? Here we go. So B, parallel B, bass and drums. Super clean and simple. The compression that needs to be set on bass and drums is a very specific sounding compressor that he likes. And I like this style too when I'm dealing with bass and drums, because we like harmonic distortion, harmonic saturation. We want a little more presence or sonic, greatness from the compressor. Something like a little dirtier, okay? Distressor comes to mind. That's what he uses. I will always use a distressor in some way or another on bass or drums because it has a great vibe to it for those things. So what he's doing is parallel B is his bass and drums. That means his bass, his drums get sent here. Nothing else goes here, okay? Now parallel C, center, think mid-range. C, center, middle, mid-range. Guitars go here. That's what he puts here. Parallel D is usually the wide bus for him. Now what goes there? Ambiance. Like any sort of weird ambient sound effects, or background vocals go to D. Now, all the rest, we'll go back here right now. What does that mean? It means potentially some vocals, lead vocals, maybe keyboards, horns, violins, synths. That's the all the rest section. Now, if the synth is a particularly really bassy synth or something, and it has a vibe that's similar to a bass and there's no bass in the song, maybe you throw that on B. But the point is, I want everyone to realize, is if you got bass and you got drums and you want to lock those up, you set your compressor so it sounds great when you have that stuff. You don't want to have to reset it when you send more things into it and make that now worse because there's other things in it than it was before. So that's why this lives on its own. That's why these all live on their own. Okay, so what you'll hear if you watch his stuff from a long time ago, he talks about sending vocals to A, so he likes parallel A, and also D. In other words, backgrounds and things might go to D, A might get the leads and things. Now, don't think this is where it ends, because depending on what year you watch of him explaining what Brauerize is, when he was, in a hybrid style, and then when he gets in the box, he's honed his style. He changes it. So the point when he started with the, like when he was doing this with kind of a hybrid style, right, about 5 years ago, something like that, what he did was this was his style, these four things, parallel A, B, C, D. Then it would get sent after this through a series of like color boxes with more of a sonic characteristic being added to it, but basically summing these things all together, then hitting all that, then getting printed back into the computer. So that was his way of working in that way. But then he honed this by adding vocal parallels to this whole situation, because what he realized was that by sending vocals to many buses in a similar fashion like this, except on only vocals. Now, that's why I have up here, see how it says vocal parallel bus A, B, C, D? What I want you to realize is this is not the same thing as this. This is the parallels for everything like we just described. What he added to his style is a vocal parallel setup. And the reason he does this is similar, okay? Because each compressor has its own flavor, its own sound. And this is how I work. I will always use multiple compressors, not in series, not one after another, but on different tracks. Like, so different buses. These are auxiliary buses, right? And this one could have a 2A on it. And it could have an EQ after it or not. But the bottom line is 2A, all right? This next one, G-bus. Okay, G-bus comp. This next one, TubeTech CL1B. Next one, Shadow Hills. So just by putting on different flavor compressors on these four channels and sending your vocals there, what you wind up getting is one compressor that pushes some specific part of that vocal, maybe a little more of the chest. Then another channel here is giving you a little more of the throat of the vocal. Then another one here is giving you a little more of the head of the vocal. There's all doing different things. So because of that, you may get a better sound that you like better, which is what Michael Brauer found, and it's the same thing that I find when you work in this way. That's why all your vocals get sent here. All the rest of the stuff that we just described gets sent to, let's say, ABCD. Then these things all combine into a mix bus with potentially a little bit of color box processing, something on it also. Could be even a little compression or a limiter or something. There's no right, wrong, or indifferent. The point is, if you are hitting things light enough, it doesn't matter if you've got 5 channels of compressors. If you're barely hitting them and they're just doing their thing with the sonic character, that might be good enough. Sometimes you may want to slam one and just pepper that in. So let's just get back to what Michael's doing so that you could understand really what he's doing also, okay? ABCD is where he sends all those things we just described, right? But how he sends them there, that's the other part I want to describe, want to talk about for a sec. So if you go over here, these blue tracks are my vocals in this particular song. Now, these blue tracks, the way Michael works, okay, is different than the way I work. You'll notice there's a bus after each of the blue tracks, because in the way I work, I always send my tracks to a bus, and then that bus gets sent to my summing. Okay? Track goes to the bus goes to the summing. This allows me to process a group of tracks on one bus and send that one stereo bus to one stereo channel in my summing. All right? I've got 24 channels down to 2 in the summing world. Now, if you're not mixing in a hybrid way, you could still do this kind of thing. It doesn't matter. You send your track to your bus, and then the bus gets to the mix bus or your final boss bus, whatever you want to call it. Now, here we go. If you're going to add those other things to the mix and you want to do it the way Michael does, let me explain what he does. Now, he uses what's called a dummy bus. So, he's taking these tracks, okay, and sending them out to a dummy bus in addition to putting on, in the send section, he'll put on A, B, C, D. We're just dealing with parallel ABCD, okay? If you send these vocals to ABCD and you send them at 0, in other words, you see this? Just 0 this out, and this, let's say, is A. It says 15, 16, but let's call it A, okay? And this is a lead vocal. Let's pretend. Now, lead vocal, go in there. He will take this and send this to nowhere, but not to no output. He'll send it to a dummy bus so that he maintains control of this fader right here. In other words, he doesn't want to change what this is in here. He's not looking to change this. He wants to just ride this when he wants more vocal to get sent into that parallel compressor, number A, that's also getting other things, keyboard, synth, violins, whatever else is going there. And when the vocal needs to blossom and bloom, he'll bump this. If you set this to no output, you ain't got no fader here. So that's why he don't do that. He sends this to a dummy bus so that it's not getting out into the session any other way except for up here. You understand? It also does something with delay compensation, but I don't want to confuse everybody, so forget that. The point is, it helps the workflow to be able to send this thing into a dummy bus, which keeps control of this fader, because everything up here is post fader. Unless you set it for pre, it's post fader, and that's what he wants. He wants it post fader so he can jam this and get the vocal to come out and get above the other stuff that's in that parallel compressor, you know, A, okay? He wants to get it above it. Or if it's the backgrounds, you may want to get the backgrounds above it. So that's going to D, like we said, for the wideness, and he may want to bump that. So he's doing this from the track level, and then it will all of a sudden start to shine over there in parallel D. Now, what you should realize is parallel A, B, C, and D, he keeps at 0. He doesn't manipulate those in terms of the volume faders. He leaves them at 0 and just rides the track into it. So he's mixing into the compression to get his sound. That's what he's doing. So very helpful way to work. Those 4 things, A, B, C, D, then get sent to the stereo bus, okay? Now, I'm just going to show you how I work, slightly different, but this is what I mean by you could come up with your own way. And that's kind of what I did, which is like, I like to have a track that's processed, like if I want both of these here to get sent to one place, so I can control them both on one fader, like this. See, both of these are going to this. And then this I can control on one fader. Now this gets sent to my summing, like I described, but I'm also sending this to the tracks over here. Bus 3-4, that's what it is. Bus 3-4, bus 3-4. So bus 3-4 is my parallels. And what I want you to notice is that vocal parallels is what I'm actually talking about. Because what I like to do is send my vocals to their own bus that may get a compressor like an 1176 or something on it. That hits the summing, okay? That's the vocal bus, or in this case, harmony vocal bus. But I'm also sending it to 3-4, which means my parallel channels. So you look down here, bus 3-4, okay? Bus 3-4, this is the vocal parallels. Now, up here, you see how it says 3-4, 3-4, 3-4? These I actually forgot to change for the purpose of this demonstration, but the point is it don't matter what these are. They could be anything, all right? You could make 175, 70, and would be A, B, C, D for him, all right? That's the point. So it really doesn't matter what you title these things, but this would be A, B, C, D, respectfully. One, okay, each way down the line. They're all different. But for a thing like vocal parallels, this is what I want you to realize. I don't need to title them different. I just title them 3-4, 3-4, 3-4, 3-4. And the reason I do that is because when I'm sending this stuff to those different compressors on each channel, like each auxiliary bus has its own compressor, there's no reason to send them to 4 different places. I want to just pull this up, have this set to 0, and then the blend over here for me. In other words, the way Michael works is these are all at 0. But the way I work, it's not that way. Like, I don't do this in that way. If I were to do it, maybe the music I'd leave at 0, but for the vocal parallels, I wouldn't. For the vocal parallels, what I would probably do is take these and create my own blend of what they are, okay? So in other words, this one may be a little lower, this one may be here, you know, this one may be here. Maybe I'll crush one of these and bring that one up, you know, very almost nothing at all. So the point is I'll create my own balance that will exist throughout the song. So if I am going to do any automation, I'll just do it here. I'll just take this and I'll bump it up a little bit, or I'll lower it a little bit. You know, automate these things combined with the vocal bus that I'm dealing with. So in other words, if it's this track I'm trying to automate, I'm automating this and those parallels all at the same time. So the vocals, very little bit of automation will make a huge difference if you do it in this way. You'll hear a lot of it. It'll be, you won't have to move the faders very much because you're moving so many things. You're moving your entire sound and blend you got of all those 4 different compressors on the vocals, each of them separate, and they're not being affected by music at all. So in other words, once you dial that sound in, you don't got to worry about if the guitars now are coming in louder, if it's a different arrangement in this part and there's more keyboards and more violins. You don't have to worry about that because the vocals are, that sound you've created and built is on its own 4 parallel channels that are totally independent from the rest. That's the purpose. So like I said, I would automate this combined with that if I wanted these, whatever harmony backgrounds, whatever this is, to come up a little, okay? Now, again, I find a lot of times also, you could also just automate one. There's like not a magic here. You could automate just the parallels or you could automate just this, depending on what you're trying to do, honestly. So sometimes I'll send all of these just zeroed out to 3/4, and like I said, I want it to get to each compressor the same. So 3/4 is all you need. You don't need more than that. If over here on your vocal parallels, if these are all 3/4, then you just send it to 3/4 and then it gets into each of these channels. And they all have a different compressor on them, like we just discussed. So because they all have a different compressor on them, you're getting your flavor. All right. Now I do the same kind of thing. See a wide bus here? Now, a wide bus for me is usually what I'll send anything like ambient noises, but also guitars sometimes, especially if you want the guitars to appear super wide, sort of give you a hug, you know, not like driving down the middle stuff, but maybe like a, you know, ethereal stuff in the sides. Use a wide bus. On my wide bus imager, you know, this is just the one that comes with Pro Tools. You could use the Ozone one. There's different widening plugins. This is like a chorusy type sound, gentle stereo wow on the Wolf Comp. I use it a lot. The H9 harmonizer by Eventide is also another great one. UA makes a plugin for that. There's no like one way to do this. Wide bus gets anything I want to get super wide, okay? And then this is what I want you to notice. The wide bus, my vocal parallels, look, they're all getting sent to summing, just like the buses. So the vocal track goes to a bus, then the bus goes to summing. At the same time, the vocal track, not the vocal bus, the vocal track goes to here. And this gets compressed or whatever on these channels, and this goes to summing. The reason I don't send the vocal bus to this part over here is because the vocal bus has its own processing on it. Now look next to it on the bus. Or Vox, however you say it. CLA 76, CLA 2A. So just picture this. That's on the bus. If you were to send a track with RVox, the 76, 1176, and the 2A, and JJP vocals, and a limiter, if you were to send this to your parallel compression, just kiss all your transients goodbye. Just wave goodbye to those things. Why would you want to do that? You want to send from the track, which in my case just has some auto-tune, EQ, de-essing, a little decapitator, which is even rare for me to put that on the track, but maybe it needed a little flavor, and then another de-esser. That's all it has. That's it. So in other words, it doesn't have compression. Where's the compression? It ain't here. It's on the bus, and it's on the parallels, and they can live simultaneously. So by sending from the track itself, I'm not sending a track that's already smushed to the parallels, which is what? Going to smush it more? It's like it's already got the, the bus has the shmush, the parallel has the shmush, the track itself just has EQ and de-essing. You get me? And maybe a little flavor if you need a little decap, It's like a color box type thing. That's how I look at Decapitator, because that's really what it does. It gives you a little flavor. Sometimes you need it if what you've recorded needs a little flavor. But if you notice, that's what my vocals always kind of do. There may be an echo boy or something, but in this case, there's an auto pan, but it's just auto tune and there's some EQ. And then the bus might have a compressor and a limiter, and I don't want that going there. You get me? So that's where you send from what is so critical. That's why a lot of times when people don't know why their mix isn't good, you don't know how you're routing, or you haven't put enough thought into the routing to get your mix to be great. Because more often than not, that will clear up problems way quicker than like the right exact EQ move. If you're sending things to the wrong place, you've ruined your EQ moves no matter what you do. So I hope that helps a lot, because A lot of people, if you want to know exactly what Michael's doing, I recommend watching his videos to figure that out. But if you want to know what I'm doing, which is basically just to keep everybody on the up and up here, I send like guitars and different things to the wide bus. I'll send vocals to those vocal parallels. And then sometimes I only have one music parallel for the rest. Sometimes I've got none. Sometimes I've got three. It changes all the time. And I never called them A, B, C, D ever until I watched the Brauerize thing. And that was recently. So before that, I just called it parallel 1, 2, 3, 4. I called this vocal parallel 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to have 4 parallels for the music and 4 for the vocals. You could have 1 for each or 2. But the bottom line is, why does he have 4 parallels for the music? So that the bass and the drums can be getting its own set of compression and dealt with that way. And every channel of this that he has, he's got compression and then EQ. And the compressor he uses is for a purpose. Okay, so like, his A is his shiny, sheeny, like sweetness compressor, the 33609. It has a sound. And then he's got Pultex after it. His B has his distressor, his saturated, his harmonized, like his very harmonically rich sound, because the bass you want to come out of the small speakers. So you put that on bass and you may be doing very well. And also drums, it gives it flavor, character. That's B. And it's just drums and bass. And it's the stressor and some EQ. I forget which one he uses, but it does. That's the point. Compression, then the EQ. This is what he's got on all 4 of these. The third one, it's guitars, and I always remember guitars. Tube amps sound the best on guitars. I'm a guitarist, so it's something I always think about. That's how I remember on the third one, he's using a Fairchild. Or not, he's using something else, I think, but a Fairchild has tubes in it. So you might as well use something like that, okay? You know, Fairchild style plug-in on there works great. Some EQ after it. It doesn't even matter which one. And then the fourth one, he's using, I think it's called the Edward, which has a widener on it. So that's why that D is his wide bus. And he's got that and some EQ after it, all right? And it doesn't matter which one. Come up with your own way to do this. That's the way you can make this work for you, all right? And this is the point. The amount of signal you send into here is controlled on this level. Because if you have the fader controlling how much or how little gets sent into those compressors, if whatever you have here is too hot on your clip level, you will be all messed up. So if this is jamming up here, your compressor is going to be working way too hard. So this has got to be the right level so that your compressor doesn't work hard enough. Or, I mean, so it works the right amount, all right? And the other thing you should know about me is I am not a test tone type of guy. I am not doing science experiments. I'm not in a lab coat. I don't sit there and try to figure out 1 dB of gain reduction or any sort of stuff like that. I don't do it. What I do is just use my ears and look at the needles to make sure I'm not hitting anything too hard. And if I am, I'll come over here to deal with it when I'm working in this way so that I know if that's the right level, then I can, if I was working in the Brauer style way, once those clips are the right level, this right here can stay kind of at 0, and I could either back it down or turn it up, and that will send more or less into A, B, C, or D, depending on what it is, okay? And then what's on that track itself, whether it's A, B, C, or D, stays at 0. You don't need to mess with how much is getting into that because you've dealt with this on the clip level. You've dealt with it here. That's the point, all right? When people talk gain staging and things, that's where it matters. It just matters on the clip level when you're working in this way, okay? So, and the way I like to explain it from me in my style is it still matters to get the clip level right there so that when I send it into my parallels like bus 3/4 or master 4, which is, this is my wide one, is 3/4. I mean, is master 4. 3/4 is my center parallel stuff. It's pan left and right, but it's not super wide, doesn't have a widener on it. When I'm sending to those things, all that's important for me is that I do it from here, and to get the level right here in this section, I've got to get it right here first. Then I come over here, and if I want more or less getting in there, I can ride this or not, just like Michael Brauer's doing. That's the point, okay? And keep in mind, he's using a dummy bus so that his doesn't go out anywhere else, but he still gets control of this fader, just like you wouldn't if you hit no output. And the way I work, which is different, is I'm actually sending it to a bus So instead of using a dummy bus, I send it here also. So I'm just basically adding like one extra bus channel per instrument. You know, it could be a group of instruments. Right? I mean, like 3 or 4 guitars could all go to one place. You know, like these guitars could all go here, okay? And then from the guitar level, I could potentially send it to C if I was working and, you know, I wanted to go Brauerize with it. You see what I'm saying? So I would have it here and I'd have it at C. If I was just Brauer style, I wouldn't send it here. I'd send it to a dummy bus and then also to C, and I would do that from the sends. The best thing you could do is come up with your own way to do it. Don't rely on doing it exactly his way. So I don't want to hear that what is the exact blah, blah, blah. It doesn't even matter. What you should do is come up with your own unique interpretation based on your understanding of what I just said. You'll come up with your own way, because that's what I did, and that's what a lot of people do, and then it'll make sense to you. You get me? It'll make sense to you, which is really all that matters. He breaks his instruments up so the compressors can handle them in a way that made sense, where he's not chasing his tail by redoing things every time he got his stuff to sound good. That's why he does it this way, and you may have your own way of doing it. So have faith. You got this. Keep that in mind at all times. You may have a better way, and then he'll be following you. So you got this, all right? Piece of cake. Take it easy. Leave something in the comments. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you dug it. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. You got it. Take it easy.